the the human and the instinctive experiential reaction that we humans have is something that machines today do not. Will they ever have it? I don't know. But at the same time, there's one other thing which I think really plays a very, very important role in this whole formula is forgiveness. Okay, and you're gonna raise your eyebrows what the hell I'm talking about. But if a human makes a mistake, it's human to err, right? As the adage goes. Yeah. If a machine makes a mistake, different story. Bad product.
Welcome everyone to BoostCast. I'm your host Dieter Runge, and welcome. BoostCast is a new podcast series with a special mix of interviews, industry and technology news and reviews, cultural highlights, music, art, humor, with a global language-centric perspective and an emphasis on where life intersects with language. So the big news is that today is in fact our inaugural episode, and I'm really excited to kick things off with our guest, Uroš Peterc.
Hey, no pressure.
Welcome, Uroš. Seriously. Well, I'll do your bio here, and then I'm going to get you to add some color around that for me. But Uroš is a seasoned multilingual conference interpreter with 25 plus years of experience on the international and EU circuits. Very well known in conference interpreting circles with A-list references from highest level governmental, institutional, and protocol clients. Uroš has clocked in excess of 3,000 days of interpretation in portfolio. Probably 3,500 now, right? At least.
Probably, yeah.
Probably, yeah. Uroš was president of AIIC, the International Association of Conference Interpreters, from 2018 to 2022, where he represented AIIC in many successful negotiations for its members and led collective bargaining efforts with international institutions. Listen, I'm super excited that you are literally the first guest in the first episode of BoostCast, because you and I have been orbiting each other at various industry events over the years, and I've always enjoyed catching up with you and learning about some of your adventures. And it made perfect sense to me to invite you to our very first BoostCast, because I know you love engaging in and debating on and challenging folks with all the controversial topics related to our industry and in our profession, and you are very bullish on interpreting in its future. So very excited that you agreed to join me and be our guinea pig here today. Uroš, welcome. Thanks for joining us here at BoostCast. I have just so many questions, and the first thing I'd like to do actually is to get you to give us maybe a backstory of how you became involved in the language industry and some highlights on the journey. Take us back and bring us up to the front.
All right. Great to be here, Dieter, and good to see you again. It's been a while, especially in person. But okay, we're not in person now. We're doing.
We'll always have San Diego.
We'll always have San Diego. That was fun. For those who were there, they know what we're talking about. So thank you very much for having me. It's really a great honor, and like you said, I always love a challenging interview, a challenging discussion where we get to push the envelope a little bit. I think that's really important in our industry. Backstory. Well, honestly, all good things happen, A, for a reason, B, unexpectedly. So I never intended to become an interpreter in my life. As a teenager, I always wanted to be a pilot. Then I got these, so that went south. And then I watched too much LA Law, and I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. But after 2 years of law school, it turned out that that's not my thing. And then I started studying political science after that, because diplomacy was something that interested me. But there too, it was not my thing. I needed something more dynamic. So when I was still following university courses, you needed some extra cash as a student. So I said to myself, okay, what can I do? what's my skill that I can sell at 18, 19, whatever. And languages was the only thing really that I had that was kind of extraordinary. And I said, okay, let's go see if maybe some of these translation agencies need a new slave to type away. And indeed they did. So I got my first gig doing that, which was really interesting for somebody who's not, I was always talented for languages, but I never imagined working with language for money. It was something that was just didn't even occur to me as possible. But then it did. But anyway, to cut a long story short, that's where I started. Then a couple of years later, started doing a little bit of consecutive. I was spotted there as having a bit of talent. I was asked to do, kind of local government stuff with people visiting the mayor and so on. I was then invited to a course that the European Commission was organizing because they wanted to expand their pool of interpreters, and they were actually looking for people with a little bit of experience, but who weren't experienced interpreters themselves, so they could, teach them, shape them, and so on. I got accepted into that program, which is an awesome program, I have to say. I mean, this is something that I to this day say that it is something that should be revived in the European Commission, because it was really the thing that made me an interpreter. I mean, that has to be said, and hat off to them for organizing that. And they really built a whole generation of interpreters through that training program, which is an 8 week boot camp style, 4 hours of interpretation a day, 1 month of consec, 1 month of simultaneous, and you come out of that thing a conference interpreter.
Immersed in it.
If
What happened to that program? Is it just sort of stalled, or what?
No, then EMCI came around, and that started being promoted and supported and financed, and it's more dispersed because that thing was happening in Brussels. So okay, policy decision and so on.
Yeah,
Won't get into that. But
yeah.
what I'm trying to say is that the program, as it was really really awesome, and it really made a whole generation of interpreters back in the late '90s, early 2000s. And it certainly was what put me out there. I mean, without that, I probably wouldn't have become an interpreter in the proper sense of the term.
I want to put a pin or flag in it, whatever they say that on that topic, because this has come up very recently. I've been talking to a lot of folks at universities and colleges, um, all over the place, and the um, uh, student population in the language, space has been
Yeah,
uh, slowly diminishing, and there's a real panic right now because um, we're not graduating as many translators and interpreters as used to be, and there's a real,
yeah. I
there's a
think I
real
think in I think in part, Dieter, due also to this massive. I don't know. I want to call it propaganda, want to call it advertising, want to call it PR, whatever, but just hype around
mhm.
AI replacing, the translator, the interpreter, the language expert, etc. And yeah, to some extent, that's happened, especially in the translation business, less so in the interpretation. But I think that's definitely part of the reason is that young people are saying, wait a minute, but everybody's saying, large language models are going to replace interpreters and especially translators. So why go study something that has no future? And I think it's not the case, because those large language models or whatever want to call the product, right, have to be controlled, taught, and directed, right? And there's a lot of discussion about that, and about the pool of knowledge that it accesses in order to mm, deliver a product in a certain category at a certain level, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's early days yet to say, okay, this is the definitive story on AI and language, right? We'll see.
I would have to violently agree with what you just said, and um, I you know we've already seen that the AI hype loop is already sort of starting to plateau a little bit. We understand now, in terms of what this new technology will provide for us in the language space. and where it falls short of the the hype. And
Yeah, for
again,
sure.
we'll get into that a little bit later today. But I listen. I want to go back to your resume, man, because uh, I there's some things that just like pop at me, and I'm just like, wow. I actually, you and I have never discussed this. Actually, we
No, we
talk about
haven't.
everything
No.
else, but I'm just
Yeah.
like, I'm looking at like some of the folks that you've had, the privilege of speaking to, and I'll just do a short list here for the folks joining us here on BoostCast. But um, you you had Queen Elizabeth, the
Yes.
King of Sweden, the Queen
Yes.
of Denmark, King of Jordan, numerous summits of heads of state, NATO. You've been at some of the NATO summits, um, European Commission and Parliament. Um, you list the President of the Republic of Slovenia as a reference, bro. Come on, like, to steal a term that's going to make my 14-year-old son cringe when he watches this. You have some serious interpreting Riz, my friend. Like,
Thank you.
and do you have any seriously? Can we just have a few like small little snippets of some stories from your time with uh, providing interpreting services to some of these folks that I've just shortlisted, and it is by no means a comprehensive list. I know that, but
Oh yeah, sure,
um,
sure. I mean, there's stuff I can't talk about. You know that
yeah,
that's the number one rule in
I
our
100%.
profession. So
100% get it.
substance is off
You
the
could tell me,
table,
but then you'd have
but
to kill me. But you know what? At these
exactly. I didn't want to
distances,
say it.
I
You
hope.
said it. Yeah, exactly. No, some things are off limits. We know that,
Yep.
but
Yep.
no. I mean, there's always an episode, right? Like from especially when you're uh, a diplomatic interpreter, right?
Yep.
I started very young. Okay, thinking back now is like, what was I thinking? But okay, I thought I could do it, and obviously I was able to do it. So thank God for that. But there were times when I showed up and they were like, okay, so where's the interpreter? It's like, that's me. uh, I showed up, they thought I was the bodyguard, so okay, no, I'm actually here to interpret. I showed up, they thought I was my principal's son, sort of there out of courtesy, not to do work. So all
Yeah.
sorts of anecdotes like that were happening all the time, and that happens when you're perhaps excessively young in terms of what people expect to see in your role. But at the same time, I mean, that allowed me to be hyper open and really you know curiosity at 120%, energy at 120%, which is always a good thing when you're doing that kind of stuff. And it was a very interesting and a very sometimes wild ride, because at age 25, I spoken to personally, like heads of state, U.S. presidents, kings, queens, etc., etc., VIPs in other areas, amazing artists, the
Yeah.
best writers in the world, the greatest scientists in the world, the big thinkers. So it was really, really a very interesting time doing that. At the same time, there comes a moment when you have to step away from that, because it does have a tendency to consume you,
Yeah.
and you could start thinking of yourself as overly important, and that's when it's time to take a step back and focus on what it is that you actually deliver, and not think that you are the alter ego who you're being as an interpreter. Because I mean, that's the one thing that I kind of really loved about that part of the job, because it included a little bit of acting, right? There
Yeah.
is there is the performative part, right? There's a reason why we're
100%.
called interpreters, right?
That's right.
The French call singers interprètes, interpreters, right? And there is part of the story is being able to perform, being able to, I mean, perform under extreme pressure sometimes, with international cameras in your face, and all sorts of pressure, everybody waiting for you to mess up. That's human nature.
Right.
So all of that has happened, and that brings me to an anecdote once, and that was my hardest and toughest thing as an interpreter. I
Yeah.
had a speech on stage. Well, I'm not, my principal had a speech on stage to an audience of economists and important business people and so on. And it just went on and on and on and on. And there I am, taking notes in consec.
Yeah.
And it's kind of taken too long because I've worked with this guy a lot. And I knew that, hang on, we usually do shorter kind of snippets. And this is like taking a long time. So I'm like, okay, it looks like he forgot about me. So off I go, toiling away, taking notes, taking notes. I see with the corner of my eye, people in the audience already sort of, preparing for, oh my God, this is going to be a disaster. You kind of get into, first of all, you panic, right? Then you get into the zone and you're just doing your thing. And then all of a sudden it ends. The audience claps. My guy turns around, sees me, goes pale because he realized that, oh, I forgot. I have to be interpreted. Okay. I go do my thing. Magically, it works. I can even read my notes, which is interesting. And it worked out fine, and it worked out very well. And at the end, I also got an applause for being able to do it, right? Which was gratifying. Okay, but that was the most sort of difficult moment in my time. It was like when you're thinking, okay, this is it. This is where I'm going to crash and burn. But luckily, I didn't, and that was a good thing for me. But that's one of those episodes. Yeah.
Point's not lost on me that we've been doing this for ages, but I do think that there was a punctuated moment between 2016 and 2020 where things just really accelerated from a technology perspective. From a WebRTC came into its own. We had just this growth spurt in the interpreting space, whether that was technology supported for remote interpreting, or the tools that were used for some of the more traditional conference interpreting uh, setups. Um, that there was clearly there were some market changes in the way that the industry was moving. So um, I guess for me, I'd just be interested to see and hear from you what you think some of those important sort of milestones were along the way, and what do you think? I mean, it was such a crazy time when you think about it. I mean,
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
we
Definitely.
we you know we started our company in 2016, and uh, it if in my opinion, if we had started it 5 years earlier, it would have been a mistake. If we had started it 5 years later, we would have been playing catch up like crazy.
I think
Timing
so. Yeah.
being everything,
Yeah.
I just feel like once in a while you get it right. It was an exciting time to be in the interpreting space, and I think we're going through this again now with another evolution of the industry. But um, before we jump onto sort of the current challenges and questions, maybe just what tell me what you think about that time when you were there between 2018 and 2022. Um, what do you think were some of the more significant factors sort of pushing
Yeah,
the
I,
industry
I think
forward?
I think you're making a very good point in that it was a very interesting and challenging time because change, you could smell change on the horizon, right? uh, and of course, interpreters organizations by default are rather conservative, right? For several reasons. I mean, one
Yeah,
one is a completely natural one in that you try to hold your ground that you've won, right? Which is completely
yeah,
legit. Uh, Secondly, any sort of interpreter or professional organization, for that matter, let's not focus just on interpreters, any professional organization is usually made up of and run by people who've been in any particular industry for a longer time, right? So by definition, you've got more conservatism than progressivism, if that's a word, in the organization, right? By default. I mean, that's just in the nature of things. No need to talk about right or wrong. It's just a fact of life. So when big changes happen, that's a difficult time for those kinds of organizations. I mean,
Yeah.
take interpreting, right? It's so interesting for me every single time to go back and read that famous book about the time when simultaneous interpreting made it into the UN sphere.
Yeah.
The personal conflict between people that's documented. You know, people wrote op-ed pieces in like the New York Times and the New Yorker and God knows what, where they were attacking each other, saying, "Oh, if you support simultaneous interpretation, it's going to be the end of the profession," and so on. And there was a time when the UN had two separate units. They had a consecutive interpreters entity and a simultaneous interpreters entity, and they were arch enemies. You know,
Yeah.
all sorts of funny stuff. I mean, that's really one of the most fascinating reads to me about our profession. Point being, I mean, look what happened 20 years later, right? Simultaneous interpretation put interpretation out there into the
Yeah.
spotlight. You know,
Yeah.
technology developed because of it, and thanks to it, and for it. And then for 30, 40 years, that was the name of the game: simultaneous interpretation. I don't even want to think about audio quality in 1955 coming through the headphones, right?
Yeah.
But okay, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
And then when digitalization came around, I mean, that was the first big thing, right? When your consoles went from analog to digital, I was around then. I started working when consoles went from analog to digital. That in
Yeah.
itself already was amazing, because you as an interpreter could set up your relays, you could set up, you know, your output languages, all of that kind of stuff, which you could never do in the past. And that already was the first cool thing. You could decide what you want to listen into, who you want to learn from, and so on. uh, Mobile computers came around, right? Okay,
Yeah.
computers, stationary computers were around in the 80s, 90s. Great. Everybody had one at home when we were typing away our translations. You know,
Yeah.
software made it into into the translation industry very quickly, very successfully.
Yeah.
And you know, as
Have a
typewriters were
laptop, will
gone,
travel,
you
right?
know, dictionaries kind of started disappearing, and so on and so forth. Laptops came around. Who?
Yeah.
I mean, I remember the first time I saw somebody come to the booth with a laptop. You know,
Yeah.
everybody hated them because the fan was too loud. You know, that's the thing. I mean, we still came into the booth carrying a backpack of dictionaries and glossaries and notes we had made in the past and God knows what. And
Yeah.
then there were these whiz kids with their laptops who had, you know, their glossaries on there, or the famous handheld devices. What were they called? Oh man, you know, there was an era where it was super fashionable to have these palm top computers, which were very small, and people had glossaries in there, and that was a big thing, right? Uh, but then all of that was fine and well. Everybody was happy to, you know, not come to the booth with 20 pounds of dictionaries and so on. Then came the era of video conferencing, right? And that started changing things. I think the digitalization in helping us work in a more efficient way, you know, having Wi-Fi to start with. You know, you can have your computer in
Yeah.
your booth and quickly Google something while your colleague is sweating away, and you can help them and tell them, this is the term you got to use. All of that was super helpful, right? At the same time, it brought new opportunities, which brought companies like yours around in the mid 2010s. And that's when things started, you know, it was seen as this, okay, the storm clouds are gathering, right?
Yeah.
The end of the profession is near.
Sky is falling.
These new agencies, these new companies are going to take over. Everybody's going to have to work on a by the minute basis, etc., etc., etc. I never thought that was the case, to be honest, and I always fought against that kind of mentality because I thought, no, 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 no. There's a place for everything in life, just like budget airlines, the no frills didn't mean the end of traditional air travel.
No.
Same here. I mean, there's a place for everything, right? There's a market for everything. I always thought, okay, we'll get these new technologies out. What they're going to do is they're going to open up new opportunities. They're not going to necessarily eat away at everything that exists. Now, it might eat away at a little bit of it, but at the same time, it'll expand the space massively, and that's exactly what happened later on.
Yeah.
I was almost beaten up when I suggested early on, we should consider having like a sector for remote interpretation. When I say
Yeah.
sector, I got to explain maybe for the broader audience. In the Interpreters Association world, sectors are areas with which we have agreements, collective agreements. Like there's a collective agreement with the UN, there's a collective agreement with the EU, there's a collective agreement with other international organizations, and so on. And I always said, why not look for a collective agreement with RSI providers at the time, right? That was in 20, I think it was 2018 when I suggested that. I was like, no, 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 no way we'll do that. Yeah, fine, but not not jumping on that bandwagon at that time. I think was a mistake because it left the space open,
Yeah.
and everybody was just doing their thing instead of grasping the chance and saying, "Hey, let's do this together," because at the end of the day, this is going to be a part of our new reality, and it is today, right? I mean, almost there isn't a single interpreter out there who hasn't done some form of RSI. It's just a new reality.
Right.
It's there.
We had a tremendous amount of pushback. I remember it, and the reality is that, and I say this all the time, right? Is the pushback was, this is going to end jobs. It's going to, death spiral of interpreting, and it's actually the reverse was true, right? I mean,
Yeah,
number one, it provided an opportunity for interpreters to be able to do their craft from virtually any location, in support uh, events on a global scale, which hadn't existed before,
yeah,
and then suddenly, interpreter that may have 2 or 3 gigs in a week was able to have 8, 10, 20 sessions in a week or more,
hmm,
um, because the technology had advanced to a point where, um, the the fidelity and the overall
yeah,
experience was pretty seamless. So
yeah. I mean, although the jury is always going to be out on that one, whether what people are hearing coming from me and you right now is interpretation quality sound or not, and that's an endless debate that we can have until very early hours of the morning. But again, that said, when
yeah,
I was in AIIC, I once dug up in the archives a bulletin from 1983, I think it was, where there were the first guidelines for distance interpreting, which clearly
yeah,
said that there needs to be a little television screen where the interpreter can have direct view of the speaker. The sound quality has to conform with ISO so and so, which was in force at the time, and so on. So it's not something super new, right? What's new is the internet aspect of it, right? And the cloud aspect of it, if you will, and the fact that you can do remote, which is seriously remote. Like I'm in Slovenia
yeah,
right now, you're sitting on Australia, we're doing this, and if there was an interpreter between us somewhere, that would be what
yeah,
RSI is all about today, right? Back in the day, it was basically interpreters sitting in the other room while the heads of state were in the main room, and so on, or whatever the setup might be, right? So nothing new under the sun, really. It's just a new method of delivering what it is that we deliver. Now, that said, when these new things come, and this is where you pointed it out, there's massive pushback. Why is there massive pushback? Because number one, there's the fear factor of okay,
yeah.
we have our thing, which is set up and which is running nicely, and it's going to be messed up now by some new technology, some new providers who don't know what it is we do, who don't know what it is we want, who don't understand. I mean, I think it's safe to say some of the privileges that we've managed as a community of interpreters to acquire over the years, right? And that's
Yeah.
great. And by all means, let's keep them because they're there for a reason. You know, they're not there because people are divas. They're there because they have to be there in order for people to be able to deliver their job properly. You can always argue whether something goes too much in one direction or too much in the other, and again, a never-ending discussion, which there's no reason for having. But that's why these sort of fear mongering situations happen. Uh, and look, then COVID came around.
Yeah. Put
What
a
was the
spotlight.
what was the first thing? Everybody was like, "Okay, we really need to do something so that we can continue working in remote." You know, so a
100%. Yeah.
complete shift, 180-degree shift overnight from basically total opposition
We
and
saw that.
negation to
I think what
a
was the
total a total sort of we need this to survive or else, right? And that's exactly what it was.
we spent a little bit of time talking about getting to where we are today, and
Yeah, we haven't
think
said
think
everything yet. There's a lot more to say, but yeah, let's. Otherwise, it'll be hard to keep an
we'll,
audience awake.
we'll come back to it, and you know what? I have a feeling you're going to be dropping in on this BoostCast with some frequency, my friend. So
Happily.
um, I want to talk about where we are today because obviously we are in very accelerated times. That was it November of 2022? The generative AI was it 2022? Yeah, 2022. Generative AI just sort of like started, a new revolution in the space, and there's a lot of concern and a lot of fear, even um, to some extent there is a quite a bit of hype as well around the whole like, oh, AI is going to kill the industry, and AI tools with automated translation, speech recognition are being integrated into RSI platforms as we speak. They're there already. And the main controversy centers around whether AI will replace human interpreters or will it augment their capabilities. And so my question is really, do you think could this evolution of AI eventually redefine the role of interpreters, shifting them from active participants to just essentially overseers of AI systems and leading to some sort of future where interpreters are seen more as AI managers than linguists and language managers? Like, where do you see that headed at this moment?
Ha. Yeah, crystal ball moment, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Show me your crystal
very,
ball, Uroš.
yeah, very, very difficult to say. Um, I think one thing I just read that yesterday is that the big new thing in large language models is contextualization, and I think that is a very very important thing because that actually means ring fencing, right? The knowledge base that your AI accesses in order to interpret, translate, whatever we say it does, right? Um, and that's fine and well if you're doing a scientific conference on a very narrow topic. But then you've got the keynote speaker who comes in and does a random joke about yesterday's topical event, and you ring fenced it, so it's not going to work, right? And that's where the human interpreter comes in. And we can always argue that sooner or later, processing power is going to be big enough, information access is going to be quick enough for AI models to be able to do that kind of stuff as well. But I mean, the the human and the instinctive experiential reaction that we humans have is something that machines today do not.
Yeah.
Will they ever have it? I don't know. But at the same time, there's one other thing which I think really plays a very, very important role in this whole formula is forgiveness. Okay, and you're going to raise your eyebrows what the hell I'm talking about. But if a human makes a mistake, you know,
Yeah.
it's human to err, right?
Yeah.
As the adage
To
goes.
err is human.
Yeah. If a machine makes a mistake, different story, bad product, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to take this to a level which is maybe a bit extreme, but you know, when you have like massive accidents and stuff, I don't know, airplane crashes, massive train crashes, etc. Human error is something that we humans tend to somehow
Yeah.
accept better than technical failure, right? And AI is always going to be deemed as a technical failure if it goes wrong, right? And
Yeah.
that's why you have all the memes and all the clips of the funny captions that AI comes up with when people are saying this and AI says it was that, et cetera, et cetera. And that's something that's going to be happening all the time. But you have that with people as well. I mean, there are endless little
Yeah.
clips of interpreters messing up on the air, you know, that you can find on YouTube and all over the internet. And some of them are to die for. Some of them are just cringe. Some are so embarrassing that you're like you want to hide when you're watching it and listening to it. But it's all ascribed to humanity, right? It's
100%. Yeah.
human to do
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
and if we
And,
make a mistake, it's either sad or funny or whatever. If a machine makes that mistake, that's unforgivable, right? And this is, I think, one area which is going to be very interesting in
well,
terms
and
of
let's
development.
not forget,
Not only language, everything, right? AI
the
related.
machine doesn't know necessarily that it made the mistake. The human sometimes, more often than not, knows that they have, and therefore they can make those adjustments on the fly. I think this
You
is
can
the
even go back and
fundamental
correct
difference,
yourself.
right?
Yep. Yep.
You can make, quick on the fly adjustments, and you can even laugh it off, or you can make a joke about it. And I'm not, you never say never, right? But
Yeah.
at this moment, the machine cannot do that. And there's this fear that AI may reduce interpreters to just mere babysitters of technology, and just undermine that linguistic
But I wouldn't
ability.
say
And
babysitters of technology. I'd actually say mentors of technology, right?
I
And
agree.
supervisors of
I agree.
technology, because you got
Yeah.
whatever happens, you're going to have to teach it. I mean, even you know, the most sophisticated technology of this day needs human intervention. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
hashtag two space. I was going to say space cowboys.
You
Two
cannot.
astronauts stuck in space. They went for a week, and they're going to be there for half a year,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's I think the role of interpreters, linguists, whatever, is here to stay, right? Whether we're going to be the ones actually delivering the output, I don't know. Right now things are such that you immediately recognize when it's a machine talking. We see, you know, as somebody who has enough experience with interpretation, you know immediately, okay, this is machine generated speech, because it just keeps on doing those little wrong things which machines always do, and it doesn't do the little wrong things which you expect the human to do, right? You expect every human to have a little bit of an accent, a little bit of a lisp, of a defect of this kind or that kind, a little
I
bit of a
can still
stutter,
hear
which
it.
is a signature of
Yeah.
somebody, right? I tend to speak a little too fast. Some other people, you know, tend to make huge pauses, etc., etc. AI has this horrible robotic way
I
of
did this
speaking, which is
crazy
too
thing.
linear,
Yeah.
and
The
it becomes
robotic
hateful
is.
after about 5 minutes, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I did this crazy thing where a friend of mine was, testing a new voice cloning technology,
Mm.
and so we were out at dinner, and I spoke into the machine and provided context, and they all had a lot of fun with that, uploading a video of me describing in great detail how to change a diaper, which was it was extremely humorous. And but when I watched it, I could still tell that you could still tell that my voice was being cloned. It wasn't.
Yeah.
It sounded like me. Kind of sounded like me. It still was me. And it was hilarious, absolutely hilarious. By the way, I give great diaper changing guidance in AI, but you could still tell. But 5-10 years from now, I
Yeah,
think that
exactly.
tech is
Exactly, right?
it's
Yeah.
going to be much more nuanced. I mean, we see the deep fakes. You really have to question these days what you see and what you watch, and the tech is going to get smarter and better. But um, at the same time, I still find it hard to believe that it's going to be able to make those nanosecond decisions that we still make as humans right now. I mean, again, I don't say never. I never say never on anything, but there is this thing, there's this fundamental human quality, which is being able to pivot in the moment, where
Yeah.
I think the tech can't quite
Instinct.
do that yet.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it can only do that again based on input and based on what we tell it to do, right? I mean, I don't want to get into a very technical discussion here because I can immediately be dismissed by somebody that I don't hold a PhD in advanced language
Yeah.
models, etc., and neurolinguistics, and I don't. Full disclaimer, but
Urosh, on
we're
BoostCast, you said
talking
XYZ.
exactly, but we're talking we're
I have a
talking
peer
opinions
reviewed
here, right?
journal that proves you wrong.
Yeah, we have an op-ed piece here, let's say,
100%.
and I think just to maybe try and close on the topic, I think right now, right in September of 2024, that we are still a long ways away from AI replacing the human interpreter in the international conference setting, where a lot of soft skills are necessary and a
Yeah.
lot of experience is necessary on so many levels, which
Yeah.
have nothing to do with the technicalities,
Yeah.
that we're not there yet. Similarly to when I say, when people are scared to death of RSI putting them out of work because it'll give access to your random 17-year-old bilingual on the other side of the planet who's going to be able to do the job instead of somebody who's had the experience of doing it for 50 years. My answer is no.
Yeah.
RSI is the most difficult form of interpretation, and only the best interpreters are able to do it properly. One of the problems is that a lot of the best interpreters, A, don't need to, B, don't want to do RSI. Hence, the RSI space is left open often to interpreters who are perhaps a little lower on the quality scale, if you will, or
Mm.
who are a little lower on the years of experience scale, and that all compounds and adds to the delivery not being great and the false conclusion that it's RSI that's the problem, not the interpreter. If you put the same high level, highly skilled, highly experienced interpreters who are doing an on site international conference of the utmost import into an RSI model, they're going to be able to deliver it equally well.
Yeah.
Right? That said, this is the interesting thing
Yeah.
that I think really needs to be discussed. That said, are we going to be able to educate, train, and provide experience and provide the mentorship and the support to a whole new generation of interpreters who are digital natives who are learning the art, and I deliberately say the art of interpreting via RSI only and not on site? That's the big question. And,
Yeah.
you know, my answer tends to be we need a mix of both. You cannot do just one thing in this profession. It's like a whatever you do in life. I mean, even professional three Michelin star chefs, you know, are capable of just frying an egg with a piece of bread and having that for breakfast, and they even want that. So you need both of these things. I don't think we can be exclusivist and say, okay, we only do this, we only do that, we only do that. Yes, some people have the privilege of being able to do so. Some have just the circumstances where they can do so. Certain languages, certain locations don't, and they have to adapt, and that's just the reality of it.
Are you
But
are you
yeah,
concerned at all about the sort of law of diminishing returns here, where the tech continues to improve, the AI continues to improve, and then we get to a point where the public's perception of what's good enough for interpretation lowers baselines the standard of quality in our profession, where it just
I don't think so. I
diminishes
think
the value of the human expertise, the
average is
nuance.
always going to be average.
Yeah,
Crap, pardon my French, is always going to be crap,
yeah,
and outstanding delivery and performance is always going to be outstanding. And it's like the machine can play the piano quite well, right?
yeah,
But it's not a virtuoso that makes people cry.
yeah.
That's the gist of it.
Ain't got
And it's
no
the same.
soul.
It ain't got no soul, and it doesn't have the humor. It doesn't have the understanding of the moment. AI cannot feel the vibe in the room. All right,
Yeah,
enough said.
cannot read the room. That,
Yeah.
you know, I can't put it
Yet,
more
maybe yet
crisply
is
than
the
that.
word,
Right?
is the
AI
disclaimer to add.
presently cannot read the room. It is 100% true. Again, it just, yeah. All right. I I want to ask you about the things we've talked about this before offline. Things that were labeled as the next big thing that just weren't, and things that were labeled as doomed but weren't. And I want to put that into sort of the context of kind of where we are in this conversation so far. It's in terms of the RSI interpreter. What what does anybody who is sort of midstream in their professional trajectory as an RSI professional, what do they need to be on the lookout for, and what do they need to just set aside and go, you know what, in your mind, like what, and that can be technology, or that can just be industry related um,
Well, I
hyperbole.
jump on one thing you said. You said, what is the sort of mid-career RSI professional? I actually wouldn't call them RSI professional. I just call them interpreters, right?
Yeah,
Because they inherently are capable of doing consec,
that is true.
simultaneous on
Yeah.
site, simultaneous in RSI, hybrid, etc., etc.
However, the
There's
reverse is not ever true. So
exactly. I mean, but it's like you have outstanding interpreters who make the worst translations possible, and you have amazing translators who are not capable of interpreting a single sentence.
yeah,
Two different worlds, right? And people tend to specialize, you tend to like things and so on. But okay, we went off
yeah.
on a tangent here. Coming back.
No, but it's a fair point. It is really
Yeah.
true. I mean, if you're a rock star, simultaneous interpreter, or you're a rock star translator, you've honed these skills over time, over a period. There's just
and
no,
and that's what was part of the conflict in the
yeah,
in the 40s and 50s, was
yeah,
precisely you had these rock star consec interpreters who were right up there, with
yeah,
with their heads of state and foreign ministers and so on. I mean, going far back into history in the Ottoman Empire, the Dragomans, the interpreters, they were deputy foreign ministers, basically.
Yeah.
You know? The only ones in the empire allowed to wear yellow shoes. I love that anecdote. It's really cool.
Wow,
But
I did not know that.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's something, it's something, you know, this aura of the interpreter that we interpreters actually also like. Let's be honest, right? We love to be special to some extent, right? We like the fact that we're praised, that people tell us, "My God, the job you guys do, that's really amazing," right? Let's be honest, you know. And what's really important is to understand that technology can be helpful. It can also get in the way, right? I know quite a few interpreters who are always, you know, on the last technological thing, up to date with everything, surrounded by 64,000 gadgets that get in the way of just press the mic button, you know, switch it on and start interpreting. There's something, you know, you can quickly get into overload and have too much, you know. AI tools, for instance, can be a great thing. I mean, I would love to see AI implemented where it switches on the mic for the colleague who forgot to switch it on, right? Where AI switches the channel to the right one when somebody makes a mistake and gets into a channel war with somebody else. So that would solve a lot of problems. I would love for AI, when I hear the speaker saying, "Oh, to quote Shakespeare, you know, in Romeo and Juliet, blah blah blah," to immediately just come up and pop up, you know, the official translation of that, which is being used and stuff like that. That would be amazing. You know, quotes from you know, article so and so, the rules of procedure states, etc. That would be awesome. And I think we will get there sooner or later with speech recognition, with automatic transcripts and so on. That's going to come very quickly, and that can be very useful. But it does require an additional level of
You know, some
you know,
upskilling in the tech,
cognitive
right?
absorption, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Yep.
you know, every interpreter knows when you're doing easy stuff, you can, you know, quote unquote, be flipping through the newspaper as you're interpreting, right? The moment it gets hairy, you put it away, you stop fiddling, you close your eyes, and you concentrate 120%. Why? So that you block away all other input, even visual, right? When it gets super hard, you close your eyes because you're only focusing on the audio, right? So what do all the AI things around you help you with? Nothing, right? Because you're switching them off on purpose because you can't handle them. They can help a lot in preparation. They can help a lot while you're in the booth together with your mate. You
Yeah.
know, while they're working, you're looking stuff up, you're preparing, you're seeing what's going on, you're helping them. There, it can do a lot. So, coming back to your question, you know, the next big thing that wasn't, um, definitely this, you know, live AI assistant to the interpreter.
Yeah.
That's not working because it causes cognitive overload.
Yeah.
It's not going right.
Yeah.
And just these, generally all of these sort of across the board ideas, right? RSI is going to kill interpretation. No, it's not. It just helped expand it. You know, simultaneous is going to kill consecutive. No, it's not. Consecutive is still around. You know, AI is going to ruin the interpreter's profession. No, it's not, because it can't do it well enough, and you know, people might not really want it. Ever thought about that one? Clients might not want it. You know, some might. It might be something you add on top of. Let's say you've got 6 mainstream languages which you have interpreters available for, and then you've got what we talked about earlier, your less dispersed language, no interpreters available.
Yeah.
The only option you have is to offer an AI tool, whether it be captions or actual AI generated voice interpretation, whichever. And if that's the only way to deliver it, you know, people are going to take it. It's better that than nothing, right? It's like you go to a restaurant and there's a
Yeah.
language that nobody speaks, and you're looking at the menu. Yeah, you're going to ask, you know, Mr. Google what he thinks, and sometimes you get some ridiculous stuff, but you kind of get
Yeah.
through, right? And at least you survive. And that's where I'm seeing things going. But yeah, I think I think this scaremongering with AI tool. Well, number one, saying that you need to be highly proficient in using AI tools in the booth in order to be able to deliver a good job today, not true, right?
Yeah, I think
You
it's
just need you
unnecessary
just need to be
stress.
a
Yeah,
well-read interpreter is what you need to be. You need to be curious about the world,
yeah,
period, and then you know things, right? AI can help if you're into that stuff. It can be helpful. If you're not, not a problem. I think right now, and definitely, AI as the interpretation output vehicle definitely can be useful, like in the kinds of scenarios I mentioned, where there's no other option,
yeah,
where you get a last minute request. Oh God, could you add Tagalog into Slovenian?
yeah,
Right. Yeah, with the press of a button and with the sign up to a subscription, we'll get you something that's gonna
yeah.
be okay. At least it's gonna be helpful. It's not gonna be the best possible thing, but we have something, right? And that's where things stand right now. 5 years
And
time,
I 100%
let's talk
agree.
again.
When people ask me about AI interpreting, I always say, yeah, it's the augmented interpreter, right? It's the advanced interpreter. It's the awesome interpreter, but it's not, going to replace the interpreter by any stretch of the imagination. These are tools that we use that help us be more expedient and more proficient in what we're doing. And to the extent that we're able to leverage these tools, um, you know, that's where the magic happens, right? And you're 100% right again on preparation. AI is a wonderful tool to get yourself ready for an event. There are certain uh, features and technologies in the AI space that will support that interpreter during the session. Um, but it's again, RSI is already a huge cognitive load to begin with, right? There's only so much, and so I see it evolving. I already see it sort of people are calming down a little bit. There's a place for it, and I think it's gonna help make the experience more robust for end users. But it has its place, and it's going to be used exactly in the way that it needs to be used,
Yeah,
you know
and
as it
and
should
that
be, right?
way that it needs to be used, I think, is still under construction. We're still in process. It's like the famous paper-free booth, right? Yeah, except not all the way, right? You're always going to need at least a little bit of something to be able to jot down numbers and certain things which you can't type away that quickly. You know,
Yeah,
you just need that. There's always going to be a pen and a paper in the booth, right? There's
yeah,
always, I think, going to be some form of an agenda or perhaps list of speakers, at least on your screen or something. And yeah, when you're talking about a big document, you're going to need it in front of you because you can't leapfrog from page 8 to page 89 and back to 76 in PDF just like that, If you got it in front of you, you can do flip, flip, flip. There you are. You have your bookmarks and you're good and you know exactly, this, and that. So, the, you know, the famous German word "jein" comes to mind.
what
Yes and
word?
no. Jein. Neither yes nor no, right?
Yeah, oh my goodness. um yeah, that's it. Cracks me up. um it we did not get to nearly half the things that I wanted to talk
Yeah,
about today, and we knew that was going to happen anyways, right? I
of
mean,
course. Yeah.
we knew it was going to happen. So of course we will get to them in a future episode together. By the way, I wanted to say in advance of our episode today, the music that everybody's been
Oh
hearing
yeah, yeah, yeah.
during the interstitial breaks or what have you. I curated a list of heaps of Slovenian songs
Okay. Okay.
in
Hang on. Hang on. Disclaimer. Disclaimer. I had no participation in the choice of music whatsoever. Okay. It's all
I'm dragging
Dieter,
you in
not
with
me.
me. I'm dragging
So,
you in with me.
not necessarily my taste. I
I
have no
tell you
idea what
what.
you put in there, but it's going to be fun to see what it is.
I tell you what. I did not know that. I mean, some of the music. I just did a cursory, scan of the music
Some must
industry
be
in
highly
Slovenia.
ridiculous.
That
some must be
was
really
a fantastic evening, by the way. And I discovered that a band that I love, who we've heard in the set earlier, it is from Slovenia. So
we're full of surprises.
I don't know if you're familiar with the band Grammatic, but that is my groove in my car at least once a month.
Well, there you go.
Where
And you didn't know
play
that.
like all those tracks like back to back. It's amazing.
Well, there you go.
And also my favorite DJ producer, one of my favorite DJ producers, also named Uroš.
Yeah.
Better known as DJ Umek. Who is really well known in a lot of circles.
He started out when we started to go to clubs back in the day. So must be. I think he's my age.
That's exactly right. I mean, he's really well known. So for me, it was a fascinating evening to put together a list of music and had a good time with that, and some surprises in there as well. But listen, I want to thank you for joining me here today.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Very first episode of BoostCast, and I'm looking forward to revisiting a lot of the things we talked about today.
We've got lots of controversial things to keep talking about.
We didn't even get controversial, man.
We didn't even get to the controversial.
We didn't even get there yet. Exactly. The next one, Uroš. We'll
stay tuned. The next one's going to be controversy central, right?
We waded into it. We were kind. We were soft. We soft served all of it.
Yeah.
But I do want to thank you for joining me today, and I look forward to catching up in real time at some point. I don't know. Next year we'll find some place that we will intersect. I'm sure.
Next year is just a couple of months away. So yeah.
This is true. This year just sped by, didn't it? Crazy year.
It did.
But Uroš, always great to catch up and have a chat. Hopefully, we covered some of the things that you wanted to cover. I hope we get another opportunity soon to dig into some of the other things that I literally had to park today. But we will at some point.
I'll be more than happy to. Great pleasure.
Fantastic.
Great.
Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for joining us today here on BoostCast, and look forward to seeing you in future episodes of BoostCast. We've got lots of cool things coming up in these swing months, and we'll have more information on that in all the logical places that you could find out about that sort of thing. So thanks everyone, and thanks Uroš. Thanks for joining us, and
thank you.
If there are any questions or anybody has anything that they want to follow up on with us, please, we encourage everyone to shoot an email to us here at BoostCast, and we will do our very best to try to get back to you on that as well. Thanks everyone.